After so many days of nice weather, storm chances are back in the forecast. We've got warmth, we've got humidity, we've been building up the past week, and now a cold front wants to tap into that. I'm 5 News Chief Meteorologist Matt Standards. We have severe zones across Arkansas and Missouri and even to Louisiana. Level 3 right down the middle of the road for severe weather level threats, and includes much of central Arkansas. But the storms are going to be firing up towards the west, and you can see a big sharp cutoff between a level 1 to a level 3. We think storms are going to fire up around Fort Smith, Van Buren, maybe even around Fayetteville too, just after lunchtime, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. They'll start to bubble up, but then they move east, and as they move east, they'll get stronger, they'll get larger, and they'll become more numerous as well. I think at first we'll only have a couple pop-ups. Now, some of them could be intense, but it's probably at least going to take them 20 minutes before they even start showing up on radar. At least 20 minutes before you really get some hail signatures out of those. It takes a while to produce some of that hail. But then once they get east of Paris and Clarksville, they'll get a lot bigger. But our main threat will be hail anywhere across Arkansas. There's a little bit of rotation in central Arkansas. There won't be as much over 5 country. But let's take a closer look at where these zones cut off. So we've got that level 1 in western Benton County, western Washington County, even just west of Natural Dam. And then once you get into Sequoia and LaFleur counties, we're in that level 1. I think somewhere between the level 1 and level 2, that sharp cutoff, I think that's where the storms are roughly going to fire. So kind of close to US 71, kind of close to I-49. But when they first fire up, they'll be weaker. It takes a while for them to build up at first. So that's why you see the severe threats quickly go down once you enter Oklahoma. We may not be able to get big storms. They'll probably pop up small just near the state line and east of the state line, and then they get bigger. And as they get bigger, the level threat starts to get larger as well. We have that level 3 across Johnson County, Logan County, eastern Scott County too. But a level 2 from Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville, all the way into Van Buren and Fort Smith. We're included that in Booneville and in Waldron. And then once you get to Paris and Clarksville, Lamar, Knoxville, we're under that level 3, mainly for hail. Eventually, once the storms get a little bit farther east, they could also produce some gusty winds. The threat for gusty winds will go up, and the threat for even a stray tornado will also go up. So what we're going to do is take a closer look at 5 country, and then I want to examine and look at the whole natural state as an entirety. We'll take a look from east to west on where the storms are going to be firing up. Now, for your Friday evening, not much going on. We could have a stray pop-up storm in parts of central Oklahoma, but I think we should mostly be okay here. Waking up Saturday morning, nice warm start. Breezy though, temperatures in the 60s. With that south wind and even with partly cloudy skies, and if you get some good sunshine right around lunchtime, temperatures are going to soar. We're expecting everyone to probably hit the 80s. The question is, how far in the 80s do you go? We're trying to figure out maybe low 80s in northwest Arkansas, mid 80s in the River Valley. This is kind of what this futurecast is showing as well. We're pretty much on board with that too. But then the cold front starts coming in from the west. It's probably sitting in Oklahoma, hasn't sparked anything yet. But once it gets closer to the state line, that's when we'll start to spark these storms. Now, we're not exactly sure where they will fire up, but notice at first, they're not doing a lot. It takes them some time before they can build up, but they'll start to become more numerous, especially east of Fort Smith. Now, that's not to say all this activity could just be 20, 30 miles west, and then that would be a big difference in what we get. Fayetteville, Bentonville, we could be getting some of those pop-up storms before they push out. If they trend any farther east, though, we may get clear. The cold front's going to pass on through, but we may be just fine from storms. You're going to look in that eastern sky, and you're going to see the storms, but they may not hit some of us. And so that's why we got about a 50-50 shot. It just depends on where they fire up. You live farther east, it's pretty much a for sure bet that you're going to get storms. The question is, where will the first ones fire? And then they may continue to fire 4 or 5, maybe up to 6 o'clock. But it's really for Johnson County, Logan County, and Scott County. That's where we have that level 3 threat trying to come at us as well. And then it drops off towards the west. Then the westerly wind starts to pick up. Notice how we drop temperatures even though we didn't get rain. In this simulation, this is just a simulation. Even if you don't get rain, temperatures will quickly drop because that cold front's coming in. But just got to be looking out. There could be a couple pop-ups. They would be in and they'd be out really quick. So even if you got one, it's not going to last very long in northwest Arkansas. In the River Valley, they could pop up a little bit, then push off towards the east. But notice how much larger and much more widespread they become, and then they kind of form one nasty line, just barreling through Conway and Little Rock and then all the way east to Memphis. So you got to watch out for some storms. 50-60% shot. I think in northwest Arkansas, it's really more 50-50. In the River Valley, especially east of Fort Smith, chances start to go up. In fact, for Clarksville and Paris, we may be at a 70-80% chance for storms. Fort Smith, 50-60. You head to Sallisaw and Poto, it might be only a 30-40% shot. But let's say everyone's got a shot for some storms. When would they fire up? Because some of us may not get one, but when should you be on the lookout for some storms? Let's take a look at the map. We went ahead and made it darker shades of purple as the time goes on and the storms get even larger. We've got this 2 to 4 o'clock window for western Arkansas and parts of eastern Oklahoma, but remember, they're going to be isolated. That doesn't mean everyone in Poteau or Sallisaw, Fayetteville, Bentonville are going to get a storm. By 4 o'clock, we've got higher chances for some activity from Clarksville, Paris, Waldron, even into Ozark. After 6 o'clock, still kind of clipping Clarksville. That's when they press east. They become much more numerous, more widespread, and then most of the natural state from Little Rock east will probably get some storms, and they'll be exiting the state there towards Jonesboro and Memphis by about midnight or so. Here's a closer look at home, just kind of zooming in just a bit. 2 to 4, Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, Bentonville, Sallisaw, Poteau, right around 4 o'clock around Fort Smith. And once again, these times can fluctuate by about 30 minutes to an hour, but we're getting pretty solid, I think, on the timing. If they pop up where you live, remember, not everyone's going to get one. Can't stress that enough. We get emails saying that, I'm going to get a storm. Well, that's definitely part of the forecast, too. Some of us may be just fine, but that cold front's going to hit you. That wind from the west is going to really pick up. There could even be some dust coming in across Oklahoma. So watch out for that, and then by 6 to 8 o'clock, they push off towards the east. Here's a wider view. I want to show you kind of what we're talking about for the whole natural state. As we go throughout the afternoon, more storms firing up, especially in the eastern River Valley, parts of the mountains. They could be trying to skim parts of northwest Arkansas, trying to skim parts of Fort Smith, but then this nasty line will start to form all the way from the north to the south. And over time, notice how they start to run into one another. That's when the hail threat starts to go down. We have the higher hail threat, but later into the afternoon and evening, once they all form into a line, winds become the primary threat. And they could just barrel on through, and there could be even a low tornado chance along the leading edge of these storms. But then by about 10, 11 o'clock, they push on out. So we've got a severe weather alert for northwest Arkansas tomorrow. 2 to 4 is our best guess. After that, I think you're good. Very dry winds, though, coming in from the west. This is going to be a huge difference from noon to about 6 o'clock. Big difference as that front pushes on through. Bit higher of a chance and also a little bit longer of a window in the River Valley, just because the River Valley technically from a spatial perspective is a lot wider. So 2 to 6 o'clock. By 6, I think we're good. In fact, the sun's probably going to come back out right before sunset. And then we've got that weather alert. So watch out for storms for Saturday. Very hit or miss. But if they hit you, they could have some hail.